Well, welcome everybody. It's Russell Scott here, Business Time Lord, for this Small Business Festival webinar for overcoming procrastination and distractions. And of course, firstly, I've got to congratulate all of you for, instead of procrastinating and putting it off, you've actually made the time to be here today. So well done for that. It is important that you allocate time for the things that you believe is most important for you. So yeah, that's the first thing I'd like to say. Obviously as well, making sure you've got your gadgets, mobile phones, messaging, all that sort of stuff switched on and going on silent as well. Now the other really important thing to make this effective, a very productive and effective use of your time. Fast forward to the end of it, and at the end of an hour, you will have a list written down on your paper or on your tablet or whatever else of a number of actions you're going to actually take. Because if you get to the end of this, you think, wow, that was fantastic, and you don't take any action, then nothing changes. Fair enough? So what I would suggest is you should have at least 3 actions written down by the end of this of specific things you're going to do, whether today, tomorrow, the rest of this week or whatever, specific things you are going to do differently. Really important to focus in on that. I'll check back in on that near the end of it, so bear that in mind, and I will be asking. There is a test. So let's get into it, shall we? So procrastination and distractions. When you are really good at dealing in this space, you get so much more of a sense of accomplishment and achievement. Your decisions are easier and you spend a lot less time second guessing them. And ultimately you get much better results and more momentum, because instead of stuffing around not doing things, you're actually doing stuff and moving yourself forwards. So then there's a lot less stress and frustration, a lot more clarity about where you're headed, and a belief that you can do it. So a lot of what we're talking about today and what I'm going to be sharing with you will be able to get you from where maybe you've been in the past of procrastinating or getting distracted to having some simple tools that you can use, or techniques, or specific actions, so you know and believe that you can actually get much better results. You can do the stuff that you really want to. Does that all sound really good so far? If that makes sense to you, then you're in exactly the right place. So I always share a few quotes when I start off to get your brain going and get you thinking a little bit. So Hutchinson's law: any occurrence requiring undivided attention will be accompanied by a compelling distraction. So this isn't about, hey, how do I find a way so that I've got no distractions around me whatsoever and I can get all my work done? Okay, well, if you could shut out all of the distractions, you might be able to get some stuff done. What this is really about is distractions are inevitable. Things will happen around you. The phone will ring. The person will knock on the door. Something unexpected will come up. And I want you, by the end of this webinar, to be better equipped to deal with those things if and when they arise. Shut them out altogether? Yeah, if you can do that, then do that. But the better prepared you are for dealing with the unpredictable stuff that happens on a day-by-day basis, that's really what this is focused in on. Second quote: closing one's eyes when praying doesn't increase the odds of your prayer being answered. It merely decreases the odds of being distracted. Make sense? And this one, which is a really important one, the most important thing to bear in mind: if you don't know where you're headed, a map won't help. What I'm going to be talking about over the next, the remaining hour of this webinar is the map of how you can actually overcome procrastination and distractions. But if you don't know where you're headed, if you haven't got clear and specific goals, that's the root cause of the problem right there. And I do touch on that a little bit. Although going into the detail about how you set goals and all of that sort of stuff, that's a whole different topic in itself, but I do touch briefly on it. All right, so getting into procrastination, it sucks. It's exhausting. You all know this already. It's hard, it sucks your energy. It's like sort of balancing on a fence. You've got to have all your muscles tensed. You're trying not to fall off one side or another. Someone could be sitting on the left-hand side of the fence, sitting down on the ground, relaxed and calm. Someone could be sitting down on the right-hand side of the fence. But if you're trying to balance on it, it's really, really tiring, really, really exhausting. You might get to the end of the day in the past when you've procrastinated and got distracted. You've got to the end of the day, looked at your list of things that you had to do. You realised you got nothing on that done. You wonder where all of the time went. You got distracted throughout the day. You put off the really important things that they're looming over you. It's just exhausting, isn't it? The big put off. It's a bad way to go about doing things. It doesn't achieve very much, and this is all about overcoming that. So you know how that feels in that sort of situation. Yeah, absolutely, it is a nightmare. Leave that behind. There is a better way, and we're going to cover that right now. This is a quote I love to share from Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You want to get a different result, you have to do something different. You have to change. So I've got a lot of tips in this webinar of ways and specific things you can do to change. And feel free to implement some of them, all of them, whatever. It doesn't matter which one you go first. It's not about perfection. It's not about, well, I've got to only do the right thing and not the wrong things and so on. It's about getting in there and doing something different. Because when you do something different, your results will change. So, short version of this, if you really want to get to the crux of it, number one, get better at recognizing when you're about to start procrastinating or being distracted. The second thing is accept that every single time you give in to distractions, you're putting on hold what you really want. Third thing, decide whether the thing that you're procrastinating over, whether it really needs to be done by you or not. If it doesn't, stop worrying about it and move on. If it does need to be done, get started. Even if the next step is to contact someone who can help you with the next bit of it. And then take another step after that and then repeat until done. That's the short version. So if that works for you, then happy for you to drop off the webinar right now. Go do that, spend the remaining time in this hour and get some stuff done on what you'd been putting off until now. For those of you who think, hang on, it's not that simple. There's more to it. That doesn't work for me. Then stay with us and we'll go through the journey together. All right, so a couple definitions here. Procrastination, the first definition here from Wiki, is the avoidance of doing a task which needs to be accomplished. Second bullet here is the way I define it. Procrastination is spending time on things that are lower priority than what you know you should be doing. Because almost always in this situation, there's something you know you should be doing, you know that you need to do it to be able to achieve your long-term goals for where you're headed. You know it's going to have to get done sooner or later, but you're putting it off for various reasons, and there's a few reasons we cover in this webinar. So instead of doing those cold calls to clients, for example, you end up shuffling and ordering some new paper for the photocopier or something like that. You're spending time on something that's lower priority, and sometimes it's because by the end of the day, at least you can tick it off and say, I've done that thing now, but you know it's a lower priority than what you should be doing. In terms of distractions, I define it as a stimulus that crops up and diverts your attention from what you should be doing. It could be someone knocking on the door. It could be, if you've got a home office, it could be your kids coming in. It could be the phone ringing, a message from Facebook or from an email or whatever else it is. It could be all sorts of things like that. They will be around you. Distractions will occur around you. The key thing is to almost get that sort of, what is it when the husband doesn't hear what the wife's saying, the selective hearing. You're almost getting into that sort of zone where you didn't even hear the other stuff that was happening around you because you were so focused. The opposite of procrastination is action taking. The opposite of distraction is being focused, persistent, and determined. So that's what you really want to be. So well focused on what you're doing that you don't even notice the stimuli around you that could divert your attention. You don't even notice them anymore. That's where we're headed. All right. So very briefly about me. This isn't about me, this is all about you. So very briefly, I put in the emails before this for some of you who saw it. There is an interview on my website, which you can learn a little bit more about me from there. But for the purposes of this, the karate photo, my wife got my whole family into karate. So family is really important to me. Health is really important to me. That photo was about 3 years ago, and I'm still doing karate now and really loving it. I've done a whole heap of stuff with different organisations, different councils, state government, project management. I've got a whole heap of certificates and diplomas and so on. And Ultimate 48-Hour Author, and my book there in the middle. I wrote the book in a weekend because why would I want to spend a year or more writing a book? I want to get it done in a weekend. So I found someone who's done it in a weekend, teach me how to do it, help me do it for myself. Okay, let's go. It's all about the results. So that's all I'm going to say about me. Anybody who wants to find out a little bit more about me, watch the video, and feel free to touch base, connect with me on Facebook, and we can have conversations after this. All right, so moving on, all about you now. The first step, how do you notice that you're about to procrastinate? So I'll tell you a little story about myself. So picture this, I'm sitting there in the home office just about to start on a really important task. So I got the desk all cleared, I get the papers out that I need for it. Okay, I'm just going to go get myself a drink of water, and then I'll come back and I'll do this thing. So I go into the kitchen, get the drink of water, filling up the cup. Hang on, there's all these dishes in the sink. So I better put those in the dishwasher. Oh, the dishwasher's full, so I empty the dishwasher, put the dishes in the sink. Hang on, well, as I was emptying the dishwasher, I find that some of the cupboards, they're too full. There's plastic containers and storage boxes and things falling out. So few at the back, oh, we don't need them anymore. I'm going to give those away, and a little bit of crockery and cups and plates that we don't use anymore. So I'll find a good cause. Yeah, they can go to the salvos. Oh, okay, going to the salvos. So I'll go upstairs into the wardrobe, get those clothes that I don't wear anymore, and then into the kids' wardrobes and some of those toys that they don't play with anymore. So by the end of the day, 5:30, I get back home feeling really good about myself that I've donated a bunch of stuff to the Salvation Army so that people who need it can actually get some benefit from it. And as I walk back into the house, I look at the desk there with the papers laid out neatly on it, and there's no drink there ready for me, and I realise that I've put off and procrastinated the important thing I was supposed to be doing. Can any of you relate to that? Does that make sense to you guys? Yep. It can just go down a rabbit burrow, can't it? The day disappears and it's like, oh my God, how did I let that happen? The key thing is notice when you start to do that. For me, it might have been when I was just, the minute I'm starting to unload the dishwasher, hang on, can this wait? Should I do this after the important thing I'm supposed to be doing? Ask yourself those questions. Notice how do you behave when you're procrastinating? For some of you, it might be Candy Crush, or it might be Facebook, or it might be eBay, or whatever else it is. Notice the minute you start to do it and then make a decision. Is this really the most important thing for me to be doing right now? How long should I spend doing this thing right now? Because if you don't pay attention to how long, the whole day can disappear, can't it? Whereas what you can do, you can use the concept of time boxes and set yourself a timer. I often use a 25-minute timer. Set a timer on my phone or whatever gadget you've got around you, and then, okay, I'm going to work for the next 25 minutes on this one thing and progress it and move it forwards. And then every 25 minutes, I get to make another decision about what's the most important thing to do next. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, so notice what you do when you're about to procrastinate, and then you can make a better decision. All right, so the top reasons why people procrastinate. What I'd ask you to do here, have a look through these 6 and type in the chat box just a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. I'm just going to have a quick drink of water while you're doing that. Which of these is the biggest reason why you procrastinate? Quite a few 1s, 3s, 2 and 6, 2s, yeah, quite a spread there. Awesome. All right, well, as I mentioned in the quote at the beginning, the first one here, the lack of clear and specific goals. If you don't know where you're going, a map won't help you. So that really is the first key step to take. So where are you headed? Let's assume we're in Melbourne, we want to get up to Sydney. If you know you want to get up to Sydney. If you want to jump in a car and go for a drive, and you just want to end up back in Melbourne again, or back in Mornington again, or back in Sunbury again, or wherever you're based, you just jump in a car, come back, go for a drive for the journey and end up where you started from. That's different. But in business, you're going places, you want to get somewhere. So for this example, you're in Melbourne, you want to get to Sydney. As you can see from this map, there's many ways that you can actually get there. There's a number of different paths. The dead straight line, I think, is if you fly there, but you could catch a train. There's several routes you could go by road. You could go around the coast road and so on. And fundamentally, it probably doesn't actually matter very much. It might take into account, well, how quickly do you want to get there? How much do you want to spend, etc. But there are multiple ways to achieve the destination that you want to get to, yeah? But if you don't know whether you want to go to Sydney or Adelaide or Hobart, how do you know where to start? You're probably in a situation where you're going to take one step north, one step east, one step south, one step west. You've taken 4 steps, you're getting tired, or you've run a kilometre north, a kilometre east, a kilometre south, a kilometre west. You're tired from 4 kilometres of running, but you've gone nowhere. So it really is important to know where you're headed. You have to actually be on top of that. As I said before, it is a whole nother topic to talk on, but fundamentally, to just boil it right down, imagine your ideal average day. Do an exercise like that. In 5 years, in 10 years' time, what's your life like? Where do you want to be? What's your business like? Who are you doing business with, etc., etc. Imagine that sort of situation, starting from the long term. Then, okay, in order to achieve that in 10 years' time, what do I need to have achieved in 1 year time? To achieve that, what do I need to have achieved in 90 days? What do I need to do in the next 30 days, in the next week, in the next day, and so on. Start from your long term down to your short term, and where possible, use the SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, and as if it's already happened, realistic and time-based. That's all I'm going to spend on the goals. If you haven't got goals, that's the number one place that you've got to start. Now, assuming that you have got some goals and you're still procrastinating on some of the things, then you know the thing really needs to be done, but how do you do it? All right. Now you might know in the back of your mind what that thing is for you. What is it that you've been procrastinating over? What is it that you've been putting off? Get a clearer view on that, and then it's going to be much better and much easier for you to be able to overcome it. So the rest of this section on procrastination now works on the basis that you know what needs to be done, you just haven't been doing it up until now. So the first one, don't know how to start. The age-old adage, how do you eat a dinosaur? One mouthful at a time. I did 15, 20 years in project management in corporate, and some of the projects I worked on, I had 55 people working for me, big projects. The only way to do a big project is to break it down into bite-sized chunks, break it down into manageable pieces. You can't figure out at the beginning how to actually build that bridge to the other side of the river. You don't have all of the details at that level. Break it down into individual pieces, and then it makes it much more manageable. It's like building a house. You can't just sort of all of a sudden click your fingers and the house is built. You've got to clear the site first, and then put the slab down, then the timber frame, then the other bits and pieces. So you break it down into bite-sized chunks, get the right people to do the right pieces of it, and go from there. So if you don't know how to start, it's too big, how on earth do I do this? First suggestion, break it into bite-sized chunks. Then Another thing you can do is find somebody else who's already done it, exactly like I did with writing my book. Someone else has already written it in a weekend. Okay, I wonder how they did that. Who are they? Let's get in contact with them. Hey, how did you do that? And can you teach me? Can you help me? Those sorts of questions are really, really important. So if you don't know how to start your thing, see if there's people out there who have already done what you want to achieve and ask them for help. The third bullet here, take a guess and get started. In some cases, people are thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to do anything until I can figure out what is the one single only right first step to take. Now, like I said with the trip to Sydney, there's multiple right ways to get there. And if you're heading generally in the right direction and then you do some course corrections along the way, you're still going to get to the destination. So it doesn't matter what the first step you take is, if it's generally in the right direction. Those of you may know that if you've ever flown on an aeroplane, the aeroplane is off course more than 90% of the time, but it continues to correct its course along the journey. So just take a guess and get started. A lot of the time that can actually work, because the minute you get started, that's when you realize, am I on the right track or on the wrong track? If you were totally in the dark and you took one step and you realized, hang on, well, the distance from me to Sydney is actually getting further, not shorter, okay, that's feedback. I've taken a step in the opposite direction. Let's turn around and go the other way. Just take a guess and get started. The fourth one here, you can write down specifically, what do you want to achieve? What will it mean for you when you've achieved it? And then you can ask your friends or family or colleagues or people in your business networks for some suggestions as to how to start. Across all four of these, chances are, if you don't know how to get started, try one or more of these and you'll actually be able to make some headway. Does that make sense? Cool. If you don't know where to start, because there's like 100 different things that you need to do to be able to achieve this thing, and you've got to prioritize between them. This is one of the key things. If you know that there's a whole heap of tasks that you need to get done, right? You've got loads of things on your to-do list, or you stopped adding them to the to-do list because there's too many things on there already, or whatever it is. And maybe you got the feeling that, yeah, there's a lot of things that are really high priority, and there's probably a lot of things that are low priority because they can wait till later. And maybe in the middle, there's not a lot, there's medium priority. It's either really, really urgent or it can wait till later. First thing is the blue line down the bottom here. Accept the fact that you'll never get everything done. The only people who have ticked off everything on their list are people who are no longer with us. They're already in the ground. So anybody who's alive will have a long list and there will be stuff on it. So just accept that the low priority stuff, you're never going to get everything done. The key distinction here at the top as well is, of all of the high priority things, if you've got 100 top priority things on your list, you're going to get to the end of the day, and it doesn't matter how many of them you've actually done, you're still going to be thinking, hang on, well, there's still 80 or 85 left or whatever, and it weighs on you. Just going to pop up about GoToWebinar. Okay, not sure if you guys could see that, but it's all good. Yeah, it weighs on you. So it's not manageable to have a huge long list. So what's manageable, and what a lot of people encourage and what I recommend as well, is you pick the top 3 things that are most important, high priority for you today. Now that's in the context of what your long-term, medium-term and short-term goals are. Pick the top 3 most important ones. You get those 3 done, and then maybe you even get those first 3 done by lunchtime. And then you're thinking, okay, wow, that was really good. What am I going to do this afternoon? What am I going to do tomorrow? And so on. And you really start to gain some momentum. So, and if you're thinking, well, but how do I choose the first 3? How do I choose the top 3? In some ways, it doesn't actually matter. Because if you choose what you think is today's top 3 and you get it wrong, for example, but you've done 3 today, and then you do another 3 tomorrow, another 3 after that. 10 days time, you've done 30 different tasks. Do you think that across those 30, you've probably covered the ones that are actually most important? And in 10 days time, or in a month's time, in 30 days time, you've covered 90 tasks that you consider your most important. And you look back and see, of those 90, it doesn't matter which ones you did on day 1 or day 7 or day 17. You've covered the most important things. So don't worry about getting it wrong. There's just varying degrees of right. So pick something for today. Pick what you get your best guess of what are today's top 3 most important tasks. Now these may be things that are urgent, but ideally you've got a mix of things that are urgent and then things that aren't urgent, because the important stuff that's not urgent now, if you leave it behind and don't get it done, it'll become urgent, won't it? So ideally you want to be doing a mix of things that are all important for you, but some urgent and some not urgent. That'll prevent them from becoming urgent. All right. So that's on prioritization. So if you don't know where to start, you've got too many options, just use that, and that will get you started. That'll get you some momentum. The fear thing, you're scared of what will happen. Some of you could relate to this. So what most people focus in on is the box in the top left here. What's going to happen if you do the thing? Now in my corporate work, I did a lot of work in risk management and facilitating workshops, and if we do this, what might go wrong, what are the risks of it, and so on. But in addition to focusing in the top left corner here, when I've seen Sir Richard Branson talk, he has a really positive view about risk. To calculate the risks and determine if you can handle the worst case, and if you can, then you go ahead. When you put that in the context of here, it's not just about looking at one corner here of what would happen if you do the thing. You've also got to look at what won't happen if you do the thing. What's going to happen if you don't do the thing? And what won't happen if you don't do the thing? Consider all 4 options. So when you're in business, if you're worried about marketing, for example, in the back of your mind, you've been putting off doing some marketing. Well, I'm already fairly busy at the moment, and well, marketing can wait. I'll just service my existing clients now. And you're asking a question about, or you've been putting off doing some more marketing. Ask the question, what would happen if you did some more marketing? Well, either you'll get no clients come into it and your marketing, you spent the money and didn't get a return on it. Okay, well, that could happen. Or you might get loads of clients coming to you and sort of oversubscribed, and as you guys probably didn't see it, but I did get a pop-up just before about we've maxed out the webinar platform, so there are some people that are trying to connect on that are unable to at the moment. So this sort of perspective, you might find that, well, you get like 100 more clients coming to you and you can't cope with that. Oh, well, I'm scared about that. All right, well, that's one corner of it. Flip to the right now. What won't happen if you do it? Well, if you do some marketing, what won't happen is, well, you're not going to get the quiet periods anymore, are you? Those periods, like if you're working your butt off in December, collapse at Christmas because you're so exhausted from flat out in work, spend most of January relaxing, and by late January you're starting to scratch your head and think, hang on, well, I got no idea where the money's coming from for February. I better pull my finger out and do some marketing. You have those quiet patches. You can avoid that. So if you're thinking then, okay, what won't happen if I do the marketing thing? Oh, well, I won't have those quiet patches anymore. Drop down to the bottom left. What would happen if you don't do the marketing? Well, you're going to have the quiet patches, you're going to have the missed opportunities, you're going to struggle maybe getting the revenue coming through as the clients that you've been servicing now, some of those might go elsewhere. Flip to the bottom right corner. What won't happen if you don't do a marketing plan? Well, you're not going to get more new business coming through. You're not going to get more revenue coming through. You're not going to get. See how this can work? So most people stop at just asking the question in the top left corner. What I encourage you to do is ask all 4 questions. If you're scared about what will happen when you do that thing that you've been putting off, ask all 4 questions here and see what the answers are. Then you weigh up, well, it's risky if I do, it's risky if I don't, and the risk if I do and I don't is the same. What that really means is there is no risk. Just get on with it. And it can be really liberating, actually. All right. It's hard. It's difficult. That's why I'm putting it off. Can you relate to that? When I started karate just over 3 years ago, there's one of the kicks that we do, a roundhouse kick, which you've got to have really good balance and quite good core strength for it. Lift your leg up to the side, spin around to the front, kick out, come back around again and down. And when we're learning that, we're doing it in slow motion. So you're really stressing your muscles out and exercising that sort of stuff. And when I was a white belt, just starting out, it was like, oh, this is really, really hard. Now, after 3.5 years of doing karate, it's my favorite kick. I love it. The hard road got easier. The picture here is of my son. I started, it's my oldest son. He's learning to drive at the moment, and he's doing really well as well. He's got a really great mindset in terms of getting his hours up and so on. And it reminded me when I started driving in an automatic car, I struggled to reverse into a driveway. Everything was backwards when I was steering, all of that sort of stuff. And now, however many decades later, I'm not going to mention, I feel like I'm a reasonably good driver, and I really enjoy driving. What started out being hard got easier. Don't know how long you guys have been in business, but when you started out, a lot of the things to do with your business were probably a bit hard and difficult, weren't they? But by persevering with them, they became easier. Now, the easy road gets harder as well, the flip side of that. If, for example, you say, okay, well, I'm only going to do the easy stuff, and you avoid all of the hard stuff, your options are going to get small because there's only so much you can do. So I really encourage you to think, yeah, it might be a bit hard or a bit difficult at first to do this thing you've been putting off. But once you get started on it, it will get better, it will get easier. Now, there's still plenty of time to do this. This is my favorite one. Who's told yourself, oh yeah, I do my best work at the last minute? Any of you heard people say that or told yourself that? Yep. Yep, a few of you can relate to that for sure. All right, so picture this, 24th of December, you're going out to buy presents. You might know in your heart of hearts that you bought the best presents that were available on the shelves on the 24th of December. But you also know that maybe the shelves were pretty bare. If you know people that go out and do all of their shopping on the 24th of December, the options are limited. You just imagine a situation, you give somebody a gift and they say, wow, how did you know I wanted that? I've been looking for that everywhere and so on. You find them that really special gift. Chances are it wasn't the last thing left on the shelf in the shops on the 24th of December. It was maybe something you needed to actually hunt around for, order in from somewhere that needed to be posted to you, etc., etc. You don't actually do your best work at the last minute. You actually do your fastest work at the last minute, but it's really not the best result. You might get to at that last minute when you've actually done that work and think, wow, that's the best I could do in the time available. But that's a big price you pay, because you're probably also ending up looking like this, thinking, oh my God, that was the last minute. It's exhausting, it's frantic. Now, who has imagine now kids in primary school looking up saying, okay, when I grow up, I want to do all my work at the last minute and end up totally frazzled thinking, oh my God, I'm glad that's over. Nobody wants that for themselves. Nobody wants that from anybody else either, do they? So there is a better way. If you're driven by deadlines, then set your own deadline earlier than what the other deadline is. Say, for example, you've got to put a tender or a proposal in by 4 p.m. Friday. Set your own deadline a week earlier maybe, or a few days earlier, or however much earlier you want. Set your own deadline earlier, and that way it gives you time to review the thing yourself and to maybe get other people to review it as well. Now, maybe you've been in a situation where you've sent an email. We've all sent an email, and just after, within seconds of sending the email, we realised we forgot to attach the attachment. If you've done that, I'm sure you have. Who's ever sort of submitted an assignment at school or university or sent a tender in, and the day after it was submitted, you think of a really great idea. Oh, I wish we added this. We should have added that to it. Darn, I forgot to add that. That's the deadline, the way that deadlines work. So if that's the way that deadlines work, when you set your earlier deadline, you set your deadline for the tender on the Monday evening instead of the Friday evening. So you've set the deadline for the tender on the Monday, and then Tuesday you have this great idea of a way to make it even better. You can add it in now. You don't have to sort of, darn it, I missed the opportunity. You know that you can actually do it. So quite often we get great ideas after the original deadline, so set your deadline earlier. Then when unexpected stuff crops up, like a crash of the printer or whatever else it is, you can deal with it calmly, relaxed. Take things in your stride. Do you want to be the sort of person that is racing around frantic and exhausted and gets to the end of the day saying, oh my God, I'm glad that's over? Or do you want to take these things in your stride, calmly deal with the unexpected? You get to choose this, and particularly around deadlines, leaving things to the last minute will get you on the right-hand side, frantic, pulling your hair out. All right, so just checking in now. Remember that you know the thing that needs to be done. Which of these tools, techniques have been most useful? What have you learned that you're going to implement right away? Set a top 3, awesome. Cartesian questions, good. Setting your own deadlines, absolutely. Goals, yep. Prioritizing, absolutely. Awesome, guys. Excellent. The fear matrix, yeah, absolutely. If you're worried about what might happen if you do it, worry about what might happen if you don't do it, especially in business. If you don't do all of these things, your business is going to be small and probably won't be around in a couple of years' time. That's pretty scary. You might have to go back to whatever it was that you were doing. So yeah, excellent. Good job, guys. There's no wrong, there's different degrees of right. Excellent, good. All right. Well, let's get into the distractions. So instead of getting distracted, let's stay focused. Anybody heard about Pokemon Go? Anybody not heard about Pokemon Go? It's all over the place, isn't it? It's one of the contemporary distractions that is around these days, as is Twitter and Facebook and a bunch of things like that. You can really get wrapped up in that, and I more come from the perspective of, well, there's people teaching out there about how to use social media, but there needs to be more people out there teaching about how not to use social media. Distractions can have a huge toll on people and their businesses. So one of the key things about distractions, someone comes along, knocks on the door, rings up, sends you an email, oh, but it's hard to say no. Can you relate to that? It's hard to say no to these people. It's not. No and yes are like two sides of the same coin. Every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to a bunch of other things. So a decision of yes, I'll do this is no, I won't do that. You made a decision today to participate in this webinar, or to listen to the recording if you're listening to it. And when you said, yes, I will do this webinar, you said, no, I won't do the other things that you could be doing. If any of you are married there, you said yes to the person that you married and no to the other 3.5 billion people, or the other 3.5 women around the world, or the other 3.5 billion men around the world, or whatever. Every decision about a yes is the same. It's yes to one thing, no to another. So it's no more difficult. It's just as easy to say yes as it is to say no. In fact, every time you say yes, you're saying no. So I trust that is actually useful. The people are sort of, oh, it's hard to say no. I can't say no to this phone call that's ringing, that I don't know who it is, and I don't know what they're calling about, and I don't know how long they're going to keep me on the phone, but I'll answer it anyway because it must be more important than what I was supposed to be doing, and that the top 3 things I had on my list. That just sucks. Fair enough? All right, so phone calls. What do you really think is going to happen if you don't answer it? Now, the really important calls, the family emergency, the lottery win, the client calling with that really big order that you've been waiting for, they'll leave a message. If they can't get you on the phone, they'll drop you an email, or they'll post something. The lottery will send, I'm still waiting for them to post me the multi-million-dollar winnings that I probably should have bought a ticket for. You know, the important stuff, they will leave a message. But what I can guarantee is if you do answer, most of the time, you're going to lose a bunch of time talking to somebody for something that might be important to them that it's probably not important to you. And I can guarantee that it will take away minutes or hours of time from what you really should be doing. So don't answer it. Just because the phone rings, you don't have to answer it. I know some professionals in business that have specific times. They only return phone calls after 4 p.m. Now, it depends what type of business you've got. If you've got a business that's a 24/7 emergency plumbing service, your pipe's leaking, call me right now. If that's your business, okay, you have to use some slightly different techniques. But if that is your business and you're up to your elbows in leaking water because somebody was gardening on a Sunday afternoon and chopped through their water pipe into their house, I'm not saying that was me. No, nobody saw me, and no evidence of that. If you're up to your elbows in fixing somebody's water and your phone rings, you're not necessarily going to be able to get back to the phone and with dry hands to be able to answer it anyway. And the person that's paying you by the hour to fix their water leak is not going to be real impressed if you're answering your phone as well. So even if you've got a 24/7 emergency service, you probably need to have a hotline, a service that takes care of things for you. Have an answering system that you can trust. Have a productive voicemail message that actually gives you some useful insight. You can grab the template from that link there of the one that we recommend. Get a personal assistant or a virtual assistant or an answering service of some sort. There's heaps of options out there that you can use. So most of the time people are answering the phone because they think it might be urgent, or they don't trust the systems behind like what will happen if they don't answer it. They don't trust their answering their voicemail message, or they don't trust their answering service. Well, get one that you can trust, then you don't have to answer it all the time. And you can actually get a whole hour's worth of uninterrupted time to get some stuff done for yourself. How much could you do? If you could have just 1 hour a day of totally uninterrupted time where you can concentrate on those things that you haven't had a chance to do for ages. Really concentrate on those things that are growing your business, working on the business instead of in it. One chunk of uninterrupted time. Just imagine how cool that would be. How much you could achieve with that. That's where you're headed. Also really important to think about for your business. How do you want people to contact you for the urgent stuff? How do you want people to contact you for the not urgent stuff? Someone's just asked what's a PA or a VA? A PA, personal assistant, VA, virtual assistant, executive assistant, someone like that. The secretary out the front, the receptionist or whatever it is that answers the phone for you. It can be a service. And I've got a VA that I use that I trust and rely on. I've never, well, I have actually met her now, but it lives on completely the other side of the city from me. And when I started using the services of her business, I'd never met her, but she did great work. My accountant, my previous accountant, I worked with him for about 3 years and never met the guy. I'm sure he does exist. So yeah, considering, oh, we got some VAs on the line as well. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Clients in other countries too. Yeah, if you don't know what a VA and a PA is, I suspect also you're probably spending a lot of your time doing some of the routine, mundane tasks that you really should talk to a VA or a PA and get them to take care of for you, so that you can actually get time on the high value stuff. That's what I encourage. And you'll probably be surprised at how little it will cost you. I certainly believe, I realise I was as well. And if you're worried then about, well, if I don't answer, what if it's like one of those really special people? Like, have a system. My parents, when they were in business a few decades ago, they had a system where if Dad was working at the workshop on weekends, he wasn't going to answer the phone to the clients because the business was normally closed then, and he had this uninterrupted time. But if we rang him, or Mum or whatever rang him, it was okay, ring 3 times, then stop, and then ring again, and then he'd know that it was Mum, and he'd answer. So that sort of system could work. These days with caller ID, it's a lot simpler than that. I was working in one organisation a while back, and when about 15 or so years ago, when one of my kids was about to be born. My wife was 8 months pregnant or something like that, and I was in this face-to-face meeting with a bunch of people, and normally you say, as I did at the beginning here, about, okay, turn your phones off. And I said, well, actually, my wife's 8 months pregnant, and apologies if I get interrupted, but I do need to keep my phone on. And they respected and understood that, and it didn't ring, and it's all turned out good with the pregnancies anyway. So, but I've got a system with my wife that if she rings me and it's actually urgent, then she'll ring back a second time. So if I see my phone ring and it's her number shows up even though it's on silent, all good. If it rings a second time, okay, must be really important. And you can set up your gadgets for these things as well to not let in, only let through calls from a select few. So consider about the technological solutions you can have for that sort of stuff so that you don't miss the ones that are really urgent. Emails, messaging, and social media. Set boundaries for when to use it and when not to use it. Maybe not around the dinner table in the evening so you can actually connect with your kids a little bit more instead of them playing on whatever gadgets they're playing on. Don't use email for urgent stuff unless someone is paying you to do nothing else but sit there waiting until they send an email. It's not right for urgent stuff. If someone has something really urgent for you, they're not going to stick it in an envelope, lick and stick a stamp on the front, put it in a red mailbox. That's not the way we do urgent stuff these days. If it's urgent, you need to have different ways of doing things. So if you're sitting there and answering emails within minutes of them coming in, you're letting all of them out there decide your priorities for the day. And that's part of the reason why you get to the end of the day having maybe feel really good because you've been helpful for a lot of people, but you got nothing done on your list. So then you spend all evening or weekend doing the stuff that you want to get done for your business. Well, that sort of sucks. Well, if you like that, then go do that. But most people don't like that. So yeah, don't use the emails for urgent stuff. Turn off your notifications, whether it's Facebook or Messenger or emails or whatever else. Turn off the notifications, or even if you're not quite sure about that, just turn them off for most of the time. Pull email. If you've got email on your smartphone, if it sort of bings every time a message comes in, then that's really annoying and distracting. Turn off the pull email. Turn off the push email. Set it to pull email. What I mean by that is when you want to check your email, you pull the emails down onto your phone manually when you are ready to do it. because email's not right for urgent stuff, yep. For urgent stuff, it might be that they're actually going to ring you on your mobile phone or text you. If they've got a big attachment to send, text you to say, I've just emailed you that big attachment that you've been waiting for, that you need for the tender that's due at 4 o'clock today. Stuff like that. Find the appropriate ways. If they ring and your phone's on silent and then you get a message or they send you a text, you know that it's important or urgent. Or you let your VA or your PA know not to disturb you unless it's really urgent, and have rules around what is urgent. So first figure out what is urgent to you, not necessarily urgent to them because they were totally disorganized, left it to the last minute, and then they come in like a headless chook, say, hey, help, I need your help. Unless they're paying you premium rates to deal with them at the last minute, then okay, maybe it's not urgent to you even if it is to them. Now, last thing as well, schedule this time in your calendar for when you're going to check email, when you're going to execute your social media strategy. I have a time in my calendar for social media once a day. I'll get in there and I'll do some stuff because it's got to be purposeful and productive, rather than these people that spend loads of time on social media. They get no business out of it, but they're liking and sharing, and it goes nowhere. It's not an effective strategy. What I suggest with emails is schedule time, 15 minutes late morning, 15 minutes late afternoon for when you're going to check your emails. And in that 15 minutes, I completely empty out my inbox. Work on a zero inbox strategy. If you want to find out more about that, then ask me separately. Alrighty, and when visitors turn up, a do not disturb sign is really important. Some of you are saying about, yeah, do not knock. It's really important. You can do that. Even in an open plan environment, something as simple as this, do not disturb. Important proposal being prepared. Thanks. You can't leave that there all the time, of course, but if you put that up there for an hour, you can actually have an uninterrupted hour of stuff, an hour of time to get things done. So do not disturb signs, you can do that. Close the door, you can do that. Go somewhere else, find a coffee shop. Certainly if you're anywhere around Melbourne or lots of places in Victoria, you can hardly fall over without bumping into a coffee shop. So go somewhere else for an hour. Tell your VA or your receptionist or whatever else, okay, look, I'm just going, and if there's anything urgent, just here's how to contact you. But you can remove yourself from the situation. That helps. Preparation is the key, and give people two options. If someone calls you, say, well, if you've got, this first bullet here is for people, if you've got other people around in your workspace, you've got people that are working for you. You go up to them and say, I'm just about to spend an hour doing some really important stuff with no interruptions. Is there anything you need before I go? And just by asking that question really means then while you're doing your really important stuff, they're going to feel so guilty that they won't interrupt you. You gave them a chance, they missed the opportunity, and they won't interrupt you. Or someone calls or knocks on the door or visits or whatever, they open the door that's closed with the do not disturb sign on it. I'm right in the middle of something really important now. Would you like to come back about 3, or shall I call you when I'm done? Give them two options. It's really useful to do. All right, so what are you going to do differently? Just of the actions that you've jotted down, just type quickly in the chat pane, just one of the things that you have decided you're going to actually do as a result of this webinar. Turn off phone notifications. Yeah, good. Switch off email for certain periods. Yep, set your top 3. Good. Schedule time for your emails. Awesome. Develop an ideal day. Awesome. We've got a good template for that, which I can send out as well. Excellent. That's good. Are you getting, I've seen a lot of people here typing in about specific actions that you're going to take. So that's excellent. Now, I'm just going to quickly click through. Small Business Festival survey, they will send you guys an email soon with an online survey to fill in, and they have the chance to win an iPad. I certainly encourage you to do this if you could. All feedback is good. If you loved this, I'd love to hear about it and find out what was it you loved, and so we can do more of that in the future. If you didn't find this very valuable, then please put that feedback in there as well, because I love to find out ways that I can do better and serve people better. So that's really important. They will come out with that. And if you've got, I know that you've got better things to do with your time, and for the Business Time Lord, we do offer a range of education systems and support so that you've got more time for what matters most. And most of what we do involves you spending very little time with us so you can spend more time doing other stuff. If you want to find out more, you can either contact us directly or stay tuned and stay on our list. Registering for this webinar, you have automatically been added to our database. If you've unsubscribed from it, you have an opportunity with this link to opt back in, and we will have in the next 2 weeks an offer coming out to the subscribers about some really good productivity stuff. So with that in mind, if you've got any other questions, please type them in the chat pane. There's been lots of people online and lots of questions come through. I will be saving the questions, so if I haven't covered something that was there already in the content, I'll see if I can get back to you guys afterwards. Thank you, much appreciated. A lot of thanks coming through as well. Excellent, Andy. 0 inbox sounds daunting. It is great. It really is. When you got you get to the end of that 15 minutes and you've got a 0 in your inbox. Everything's dealt with. It's moved. It's filed. You've sifted out the things that need your action from the ones that haven't. It's really great. It's much better than staring at it thinking, okay, 4,000 unread emails. How much weight does that put on your shoulders? So 0 inbox is a great practice. You're welcome, guys. Thanks very much for everybody coming online and typing in and engaging with the conversation. Got a lot from there. Excellent. 2,600 personal unread emails. Absolutely, I can relate to that. I don't have that problem anymore. And I've got some resources that can really easily solve that for you guys as well. So thanks very much. It's been really great to have you on the line. The other thing I will mention as well is on the 19th of August, I'm running another webinar with a marketing specialist about making time for marketing. So if your marketing is an area where you've been putting it off, then register for the 19th of August webinar. It's in the online program for the festival as well. So thanks very much for you guys coming along. It's been great having you there. To see if there's any other questions. Time for action. Absolutely, Leslie. That's great. How do you quickly sort the 2,000 emails in the mailbox? Really good question, and it is a lot easier than you would think, and I have got some additional resources. So if you want to drop me an email on that, Stephanie, then happy to actually help you out. One person is saying a separate email for the less important emails. Yeah, you can certainly do that. A lot of it as well is about maybe having rules and folders, categories, depending on your email system. There's lots of ways that you can organize things as well. So excellent. Oh, someone's got over 5,400 unread. We have a winner. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Been really great. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now, but I'm happy to hang around for a little bit longer if you guys have any further questions. Otherwise, have a fantastic day and enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the rest of your festival.